Your world.
Hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us on AM Live, the Leadership Forum. I trust you've slept easy and you've woken up well for a beautiful, good day that the good Lord has afforded us. Of course, you're bang on time for the Leadership Forum, where today we shall be turning our focus on leadership in Kenyan universities. And already you can see up and early, this is Professor David Ngaruya, who is the acting Vice Chancellor, that is the International Leadership University. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning.
So today you beat me to the punch, eh? Getting to the studio, that is.
It's part of nation building.
It's part of nation building. It's good to see you. It's been a while. How is ILU?
ILU is good. We just had graduation last week. A very, very busy month, but it's been good.
All right. I've been wondering, this is the season of graduation, it seems. You had it last week. Tomorrow is Daystar. The other week also we had Uma. Yeah?
Yeah.
So this is a season of graduation.
Yes.
According to the academic calendar. Fantastic. But today we want to turn our focus on the leadership in Kenyan universities. And I know a lot has been happening so far as streamlining the sector is concerned. And also the biggest topic right now is about the mergers of the universities. Also ticklish issues, the PhDs that many people are being awarded, especially with the JKU Art. And the question about also professors or the question of PhDs for you actually to teach in universities or even maybe to head the universities. That is another ticklish question that people are saying. And do you actually must have or must you be a professor for you to head a university? These are some of the questions that are being bandied around by some scholars as well. Or you just need to be a consummate administrator for you to run universities. Or a university for that matter. So this is some of the questions that we want to probe this morning, and I hope also you'll give us an insight on this as well. Right? Much later in the course of the program.
Thank you.
We'll be joined later by other panelists as well here on the program. And you know the drill, you can head over to a Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686, our SMS portal. The topic is all about Kenyan universities. And we know during the past decade or so, Kenya's public universities, especially the system, has experienced very high rates of growth, which have not been accompanied by commensurate rise in level of funding. Now, this growth of universities in the face of budgetary deficits and manpower surpluses is largely a product of the insatiable demand for higher and higher levels of education. The government seems to have exploited such demand and politicized decision-making in the expansion of university education, whose effect appears to be a serious decline in the quality of education in public universities due to an acute shortage of facilities and teaching personnel. The politicization of decision-making reduced the effectiveness of the Commission of University Education, which had been set up with responsibility to plan the development of university education. Now, there has been little or no research documenting issues in university governance that contributed to the rapid expansion of universities and its impact on the quality of education. And all this morning we endeavor to examine issues in decision-making that contributed to the rapid expansion of universities in the last one decade or so. Also, we will consider the role of the Commission for University Education on the development of university education. We will examine the government-university relationships or relations to analyze the decision-making and also the management of universities. Also, we will look at and assess some of the effects of politicized university governance. So it's all about leadership in Kenyan universities. And of course, you know the drill. You can head over to a Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686, our SMS portal. But for now, we see what is headlining the front pages of the dailies today. We begin with the Daily Nation, and this is what you're waking up to today. Assassination. Police stand hit on Ruto aides. Mystery letter. Detectives suspect people sympathetic to the Deputy President could have generated the letter alleging a murder plot with the intention of creating the impression that the life of Mr. William Ruto was in danger. And this story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, we have the flagger reading uncertainty on whether there is a real threat or issue is a political gimmick. What is the motive? That is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. The right to a birth certificate. This is a standalone picture here, and we can see the Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i and Kajiado Governor Joseph Olelenku arriving in Kajiado town for the launch of a rapid response initiative for processing and issuing birth certificates. The government plans to issue 1.2 million birth certificates to facilitate school registration. This story continues on page 12 of the Daily Nation today. Why Haji wants Mwilu kicked out of top court is another story that you can follow on page 6 of the Daily Nation. In a petition filed at the Judicial Service Commission, Director of Public Prosecutions Nurdin Haji says Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu is not fit to continue holding office because he alleges she used her status to enrich herself, evade taxes, and engage in inappropriate communication with suspects. This story continues on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, we can look at the sidebar there. Top athlete kicked out of aircraft. Top ranked 1,500 meters runner Timothy Cheruiyot was to race in prestigious, that is, it's called the Prefontaine Classic. The story is tucked away on page 8 of the Daily Nation today. Also, we have a panorama view or focus on Mombasa County today. That is inside the Daily Nation as well. So grab a copy of the Daily Nation today. Also, inside the Daily Nation, I want to show you what is on top here. Finally, truth about higher electricity bills. After 16 months of investigation, detectives expose a scandal involving Kenya Power staff and brokers who collude to rob Kenyans in 3 well-crafted schemes. How they steal? It's enumerated here. Unregistered postpaid meters. Customers connected to the grid through unregistered meters paid Kenya Power staff for consumption. Also reducing bills. Employees in the IT department manipulated bills in exchange for kickbacks from customers. And the third one, inflating bills. Ruthless Kenya Power staff inflated bills, then lay in wait to bribe from those who complained. And of course, they could inflate bills up to even a tidy sum of 300,000 shillings. And of course, when you get, flustered by that, they will tell you for them to rectify, of course, that particular bill or to reduce it, you have actually to part away with some good side or some good tides of money, I should say, a tidy sum of money. Of money is, of course, from your pocket. That is through bribery. And this is a well-investigated expose by the Daily Nation, where it's tucked away on page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's move on and we'll see what we have on the front page of the Star. Ruto snubs media as fresh audio emerges. Audio claims Lamada meeting discussed the use of Huduma number to rig referendum. There was a plot here. Audio claims Lamada meeting discussed the use of Huduma number to rig referendum. CS Munya dismisses recording, says he's not aware of reported discussions. And this story continues on page 2 of the Star this morning. Maybe we could just have a snippet of what they're saying there. Deputy President William Ruto yesterday refused to take questions relating to his claims that Mount Kenya cabinet secretaries were plotting to eliminate him ahead of the 2022 elections. The DP brushed off attempts by a battery of journalists to get him to speak on the matter after a press conference on female genital mutilation at his current residence office in Nairobi. Instead, the DP waved at journalists, turned his back and retreated into his office. His security guard then ordered journalists out of the compound. The DP is also yet to record a statement with the DCI despite telling the president that his life was in danger. And that story and the audio, you can read all the gritty details here on page 2 of the Star this morning. Let's see also what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. I'll try and grab Taifa Leo for you to see what also is on the front page of Taifa Leo. Well, it seems to be eluding me, but I'll show you that much later in the course of a program. Also, what we have on the People Daily as well. Now, the Business Daily is holding this particular splash for us. Big companies named in Kenya power bills. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation this morning. Not the Daily Nation, but the Business Daily. Big companies named in Kenya power bills fraud. And that is a story that was on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Directorate of Criminal Investigations orders customers named in the bills scandal to report for interrogation that could see them face up to 5 million shillings fine or 10-year jail term. The story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, cultural heritage, and we can see here traditional dancers entertaining guests at the annual Got Ramogi Festival in Siaya County yesterday. The 5-day event kicked off on Tuesday. And mystery of KPC fuel thieves is another story that you want to follow also on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. It says a key suspect who disappeared into an underground tunnel on Tuesday when police raided an illegal fuel discharge connection in Mulolongo remained at large yesterday, deepening the mystery of a theft scheme that has cost fuel consumers billions of shillings. That is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, we have mobiles now the largest source of soft loans. Mobile phone loans have overtaken friends and family to become the largest source of loans for most Kenyans. A new survey has shown, citing convenience and speed in accessing them as a reason for the increasing popularity among consumers. This is the first time mobile money or mobile loan or loans have overtaken friends as the top source of finance for Kenyans, having leapfrogged family members last year. You can follow the story on page 4 also of the Business Daily this morning. Looking on the ticker there, NBK to collapse if KCB deal fails. Treasury warns National Bank of Kenya is likely to collapse if the proposed takeover by KCB does not succeed. The Treasury has warned this, and the story continues on page 8 of the Business Daily this morning. Today's digit is 6 billion shillings. Rivertex spent on upgrading its factory in efforts to revive its operations. You can follow the story on page 12 of the Business Daily. And shilling holds above 102 level against the dollar. A liquidity flash money market coupled with end-month dollar demand have helped keep the shilling above the 102 level against the greenback this week. This story continues on page 19 of the Business Daily this morning. Allow me to just quickly also lift what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. And the Standard is holding this particular splash for us this morning. Cabinet eyes on Uhuru as split widens. Things fall apart. How will the president navigate a seemingly divided executive that has, in a matter of days, seen Ruto claim some cabinet secretaries plan to eliminate him, while a powerful PS has accused the deputy president of harassment? This is a story that you want to follow on page 6 of the Standard today. And this also are remarks from some of the cabinet secretaries and also member or legislators. We have Peter Munya, who is a trade CS, saying, quote unquote, there is nothing. Why should we spend our energies thinking about this matter? It is an irrelevant issue. Also, Joe Musheru, the ICT CS, says, quote unquote, I have no problem. I know the accusations are untrue, so I'm sleeping well at night. Also, Kipchumba Murkomen, the senator of Elgeyo Marakwet, says, quote unquote, issue is very serious. We should not focus on authenticity of the letter, but authenticity of the allegations. Also, we have Gadoni Wamushomba, women rep Muranga, saying the DP needs to be honest. Why didn't he write a statement instead of calling? Let's not peddle lies. This is what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. Also, we can take a quick look at what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo as promised, and this is what you're waking up to as well. Taharuki ndani ya serikali is a splash. migawanyiko katika urais, baraza la mawaziri, makatibu yatishia usalama, miradi huduma pia. That is a story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. Also, kinaya cha kupeleka mizigo Nairobi na kuirudisha Mombasa is another story also on the front page of Taifa Leo. And we can see here a standalone picture of wafuasi wa bunge waandamana. This is wafuasi wa bunge wa Starehe Charles Njagua wakiandamana nje ya mahakama ya Milimani jijini Nairobi jana aliposhtakiwa kwa uchochezi. Mbunge huyo alilala seli hadi leo wakati koti itakapoamua kuhusu ombi lake la kuachiliwa kwa dhamana. And you can follow the story also inside Taifa Leo this morning. Let's move on and we see also what we have in Tanzania, what the Citizen is holding for us and what also the Mwananchi is holding. But we can begin in Rwanda, where the New Times is up. Budget, more funding for agriculture and education is what we have as a splash. More funding for agriculture and education. Parliament yesterday approved the budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year with some adjustments in public spending as part of the adjustments to the 2.8 Rwandan francs trillion budget for the fiscal year, which begins on July the 1st. The government has increased spending for agriculture, health and the education sectors in response to the request made by Parliament early this month. This story continues on page 4 of the New Times in Rwanda. Rwanda, Botswana commit to strengthen ties, and you can see here President Paul Kagame and First Lady Jeanette Kagame with their hosts, President Mokgweetsi Eric Kaibetswe, and that is Kaibetswe Masisi, and First Lady Neo Masisi of Botswana in Gaborone yesterday. President Kagame is on a 2-day visit to the Southern African country, during which the two countries signed bilateral agreements. Also, girls can and will lead change, but they need allies. That is another story that you can follow inside the New Times in Rwanda. Let's see what is happening in Tanzania, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Citizen in Tanzania, and also Mwananchi as well. Right, did it go just to the sports? It's just jumped over there, so I think let me just pick up the Mwananchi for you. Mwananchi is holding this particular splash for us. Hakuna kifungu jela sheria ya takwimu. Hakuna kifungu jela sheria ya takwimu is a splash on the front page of Mwananchi. If you're waking up in Tanzania, kifungu cha 37 kinachotoa adhabu kwa mtu anayetoa taarifa za kitakwimu bila kupata kibali cha ofisi ya taifa ya takwimu kimefutwa. You can follow the story on page 4 of Mwananchi as well. Also, jinsi sheria mpya itakavyobana kampuni na NGO, all that is tucked away on page 2 of Mwananchi if you're waking up this morning in Tanzania. Let's see what we have also on the front page, or maybe not really the front page, but also the editorial cartoons that we have today. Right, the front page of the stuff of the Daily Nation way back in 1963 from our archives. Hired killers. This is how the Daily Nation looked then. Somalia accused by Kenyatta. Somalia has been providing money to 4 Kenya secessionists to get people killed in the NFD, alleged the Prime Minister, Mr. Jomo Kenyatta, yesterday in his first major speech to the House of Representatives. Speaking in deeply emotional terms, the Premier asserted that the men had been the cause of many deaths in the NFD. He later withdrew the allegation after declining to substantiate it on security grounds. He was replying to a strongly critical speech by the deputy leader of the opposition, Mr. Paul Ngei, who had accused the government of following the same head-on-vogue policy of the imperialists. They had, Mr. Ngei claimed, plucked the 4 innocent secessionists from their families like vultures and incarcerated them in colonial fashion in secret detention camps. This is how it looked then on the front page of the Daily Nation in 1963. Follow that story. The story also continues at the back page of the Daily Nation way back in 1963. Also, that hotel, no approach to Nyerere. The East African Hotel Keepers Association will not approach the president of Tanganyika, Dr. Julius Nyerere, on the closure of the Safari Hotel in Arusha. That is how the Daily Nation looked then. Let's see the editorial cartoons that we do have as well this morning. Allow me to just show you what is in the Daily Nation today. And this is what you're waking up to today on the editorial page of the Daily Nation. Devolved pettiness. And of course, you know this part between Mutua and Sonko. This is how it looks. Also, we do have the People Daily, and Stano has drawn for us as well in the editorial cartoon. This is all about the tax returns, and that deadline has been pushed to Sunday, the 30th, or they're saying they'll actually be opening their offices until late for everyone to be facilitated in, of course, filing their returns. If you've not done so, then at least be aware of this. And of course, everyone will be coming out of force, or people will come out of course, to file up. They'll come out in force, I should say, to file their returns. This is what is in the People Daily this morning. You can head over there for that particular editorial cartoon. All right, this is what we can actually grab over there. So let's see what we have inside. You can grab a copy of the Daily Nation for this riveting story. And this is what is the Daily Nation today. Right, we want to buckle down to our discussion this morning. Now, I mentioned earlier from the intro that during the past decade or so, Kenya's public university system has experienced very high rates of growth, which have not been accompanied by a commensurate rise in the level of funding. This growth of universities in the face of budgetary deficits and manpower surpluses is largely a product of the insatiable demand for higher and higher levels of education. The government seems to have exploited such demand and politicized decision-making in the expansion of university education, whose effect appears to be a serious decline in the quality of education in public universities due to an acute shortage of facilities and teaching personnel. Now, the politicization of decision-making reduced the effectiveness of the Commission of University Education, which had been set up with a responsibility to plan the development of university education. There has been little or no research documenting issues in university governance that contributed to the rapid expansion of universities and its impact on the quality of education. Now, this morning we endeavor to examine issues on decision-making that contributed to the rapid expansion of universities in the last 1 decade or so. Also, we'll consider the role of the Commission for University Education on development of university education. We will also examine government-university relations. Also, we will analyze decision-making and the management of universities, and also assess some effects of politicized university governance. And we, of course, will hear from our panelists this morning. I will just also introduce them to take us through this particular session that we're going to be having this morning. And we want also to hear from you. You can hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook. And 20686, our SMS portal. Again, AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook. And 20686, our SMS portal. Right, time to introduce them. If you joined us at the top of the hour, I'd introduce to you Professor David Ngaruya, who is the acting Vice Chancellor of International Leadership University. Also, we're joined this morning by Professor Dominic Mwenja, who is the CEO of Mater Hospital, also an academician. We have also with us Martin Olo, who is an advocate of the High Court, also a lecturer at the Kenya School of Law. We do have with us as well, you know him, this is Dr. Collins Odote, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, a columnist with the Business Daily. He's also an advocate of the High Court. We are eagerly waiting also for Dr. Rachel Gesami to join us much later from the Catholic University. And we shall be looking, the subject of the matter this morning is leadership in Kenya universities. Leadership in Kenyan universities. So let's hear from you. What are some of the questions that you do have? What do you desire also to be seen in some of the universities in the country? Of course, the latest debate has been the merger or is a merger of universities? Also, PhD is a ticklish issue. And should professors be the people manning universities, or maybe as consummate administrator can do so, right? So why is that also an issue also when it comes to management of universities? Right, time to see the faces, and also we shall hear from them. Just to get some introductory remarks from our panelists this morning. Let's begin with you, Dr. Ngaruya, because of course there are some specialized moments for you for the lectern there to talk to Kenyans on what you think about leadership in Kenyan university. Very briefly, your introductory remarks.
Yeah, I think the real and the heart of the matter regarding university education in this country is the tension between public good and private good. And when you talk about public good, we are saying that university education is really meant to benefit the country and society at large. But then there is also the issue of public good, or private good, where others may think, well, university education seems to be benefiting the individual, in which case it becomes a private good. And if that is the case, then we have the issue of the individual having to shoulder so much expense and cost of university education. And I think that's the tension we are going through as a country. We need to recognize that the two must be held in tension. That really university education is meant to come as a public good. It benefits society and it benefits the nation. But on the other hand, yes, it is true, to some extent it does benefit the individual, hence the issue of a private good. And we need to flesh out that tension.
Well, yeah, we'll flesh out that tension today. Let's hear from Professor Dominic Mwenja. Good morning.
Good morning, Debarl. When it comes to education,
yes,
university education usually is the pillar that holds all the development and most of the development in any country.
Yes.
And I agree with Professor Ngaruya in terms of public good. But we should look at university education as an ecosystem. And that's the issue that we are facing in this country, where we have graduates coming out of our universities to an economy that's not able to absorb them. Where you have somebody with an engineering degree working in a bank, where you have somebody with a certain specialization at a university, and they're doing the very opposite of what they learned to do. So there's a lot of balancing that we need to do in terms of the courses that we offer at our universities. We look at the market and what the market is demanding from our universities. So as we produce these graduates, then is the economy able to absorb them? Are we utilizing the young people that are coming from the universities for the purpose of which they went to those universities? Not necessarily for self-actualization, because these are young people, but for them, for employability, for them to get out and get a job and contribute to this nation. There are two types of citizens, Bwana Debarl. There's what they call the ordinary citizen, and there's also an economic citizen. We want our people to be economic citizens. And an economic citizen is a citizen that makes a positive contribution to the economy and the society at large. So if we are producing these young people, and when they come out, we are not able to absorb them into the job market, we are not creating enough jobs for them, I think we are doing more harm to the society than we actually should, because when you have some of them end up in criminal activities, and when you have educated people who go into crime, it becomes a problem. So we should look at it as an ecosystem. As they get out, are they employable graduates? The skill sets that they are getting from the universities,
yes,
are they needed in the marketplace?
And they need in the market.
And we need to be able to match those two. Otherwise, producing graduates just for the sake of producing graduates does not serve us as a society, as a country.
Thank you. Right, Martin Olo, good morning.
Morning.
And good to see you.
Thank you. Let me pick up by saying that there are problems in public universities or university management are generally not unique to public universities. There are problems of our Kenyan public service and so on. So the crisis we are seeing is not so specific and so peculiar to universities. Is our crisis of leadership, is our crisis of management, is our crisis of how we take care of our public goods and what we do generally. And specifically, what I'm interested in seeing is how are we thinking in terms of strategic positioning when we talk about education. I would like to offer a little bit of a different opinion, because education is good in and of itself. It's not necessarily for purposes of jobs, not necessarily for the economy. Education is a good thing, and knowledge is a beginning of helping human beings to know and to explore themselves. So there's a sense in which it is a good thing. Whether we do have degrees that don't meet the market out there, to me that's not really an important thing. If I want to do anthropology, and I think that's what I love to do, whether I get a job or not, there is a place in a society for that love that I have for anthropology and so on. So we should, in my view, we should actually look at education for its good and not necessarily for employment. And therefore, when we talk about public education, we should be looking at it in terms of how, I like what you're saying about the economic citizen. An economic citizen is not created out of nothing. He's created out of a system, he's created out of education, he's created out of socialization. So there's so many things that makes a human being or a citizen what they are. So basically, as we talk about universities, let us come to the point where we say, is it just a unique problem for universities, or is what we are seeing symptomatic of our national crisis? Because leadership, management is almost collapsing in every sector.
Thank you. Right, let's hear from Collins Odote, introductory remarks as well.
Thanks, Debarl, and good morning, viewers. In the year 2000, Muhammad Mavdani from Uganda wrote a book called Scholars in the Marketplace.
Scholars in the Marketplace.
Yeah, decrying the challenges of neoliberalism in the education sector in Uganda. And I think it speaks to one of the limbs of the challenges we face, and that is about commercialization of university education. I think we've turned university education away from being a good into a business, and where our focus is on the economics of it. So you see universities discussing how many students do you have, how much revenue are you generating. So profit becomes the driving force even of public institutions because of sustainability issues. And I think that is a crisis. It's a crisis because then we start looking at things in terms of money generated, in terms of this, and that's why Martin speaks about this course is not relevant to the market. And when you talk about relevance to the market, you're then told the courses that are relevant to the market are called STEM.
Yes.
Science, technology, education, and math. You stop to ask yourself, what happens to the journalists? Who will train them? What happened to the historians? Who will train them? And I think in terms of looking at the market, we must be much more elaborate. That's issue number one. Issue number two, Debarl, is, and I agree with my colleagues, is a challenge of leadership. And I think we have taken leadership casually. If you go to universities, you will find professors doing webometrics. And spending a lot of time on it, uploading stuff onto the internet. That can't be the core business of a professor. You will find professors engaged in manual administrative work.
Yes.
Yet at the same time, you have administrators. A colleague of mine just came back from the UK and was telling me in the UK, a lot of the administrative work is actually not even done by administrators. It's done by postgraduate students.
Yes.
Because they are manual tasks. And I think it is reorienting our university leadership to ask ourselves, how do we ensure that people focus on their core business? Because if your core business is knowledge generation, you should be allowed to generate knowledge. I have no problem at all with a professor being the vice chancellor of a university, because that's both administrative and academic leadership. But I have huge problems with academic deans doing administrative tasks, because I think that takes us away from our core business as a university. Yeah.
Right, and of course we shall be hearing from you this morning. Also joining us will be Rachel Gesami from Catholic University, and she'll be telling us also more about what she thinks the current situation in the country is concerned as far as leadership in the universities is concerned. So you can hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook. And 20686, our SMS portal. Right, we just want to get down to brass tacks, and we want just to also run our panelist. We will hear from you from the lectern, and this is just to help me aid with time management. I know this is a surprise also for Collins Odote. So we'll have the lectern there. You can actually speak for 5 minutes on this particular issue that we're discussing, and just to air and give us a slice of what you think, what should be done, what is the way forward. And of course, you know you have your mics. You don't have to remove your mics. We have another mic also on the lectern there, but you don't have to remove your mics. I have my yellow card and my red card and my bell as well, just to make me be keeping track of time. So we are midway, 5 minutes, maybe 2.5, I'll raise the yellow card. So don't get flustered. When you see the red card, do get flustered, because you know now you should be winding up. And if you go beyond time, I'm going to ring the bell this morning. Also, if you go beyond time, and when I told the bell as well, I'll come and yank you off from the lectern if you don't get out. So beware. So we want to begin by of course, having you go to the lectern. And we'll begin by having also Professor Dominic Mwenja to just go to the lectern and begin with us this morning, because also you'll be leaving a bit early. You have a board meeting. And he is, or has been an educationist, an entrepreneur and consultant for 28 years in United States, Asia and Africa. He holds a doctorate in business administration with a specialization of strategic management for Alliant International University in San Diego, California, an MBA and BSBA in business administration from Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky, USA. And he's currently the CEO of Mater Hospital. So he will lend us, of course, his experience from the academia this morning on the leadership in Kenyan universities. You got 5 minutes beginning now, so.
Thank you, Debarl. The leadership of our universities is not that much different from the other enterprises we have in this country, because it's just about managing the resources of the university. However, we have to look at the university education, like Professor Garia was saying, as a public good, both for the private consumption and for the public consumption. When we look at education in this country, and I'd like to say there are three constants in life that we should always pay attention to. One of them is education. Children will always be born, they will go to school, they will end up in colleges and universities. That's one. Two is food. People will always eat, and therefore we should always pay attention to food. Number three is healthcare. People will always get sick, and they will always be taken care of. So those three constants in life should be what we focus on as a nation and as a country. And when any other three falters, then it has a ripple effect across the entire economy. Education should not be looked at in isolation of what education is supposed to serve, both from early childhood all the way to university education. But when it comes to university education, it has a specific purpose in society. And that is to serve, for those who graduate from our universities, to serve in our organizations, to start organizations, and for them to play an active role in the development of the country. However, if the leadership in our institutions falter, then the entire system falters. But we should also not forget that only 11% of Kenyans will ever see the inside of a university, and that's a fact. So as we are looking at higher education, we should also be looking at the 88 or 87 or 89% of Kenyans who will never see the inside of a university, given the way that we have been getting people in our universities. Public and private universities have a role to play in our education today, because all the public universities put together, they cannot meet the demand of higher education in this country. And I'd like to say there is no child who is a private child. All children are public. And therefore, the leadership we see at our private universities should also be almost the same as we see in our public universities. I used to run a private university in America for many years as a vice chancellor. And the need that I served when I was serving as a vice chancellor at the university is to make sure that the graduate that I produce from that university has a purpose in society. And that graduate will be able to be gainfully employed. That graduate will be able to make a positive contribution to society. My brother-in-law, and I do agree, there are people who go to universities because they love what they want to do. If you want to do anthropology, whatever that you want to do, that's wonderful. But then at the same time, we have to look at the economic citizenship of the people who are leaving our universities. When they get out of the university, are we getting the return on our investment as parents, as a country, and as a people? We are investing on these young people. We expect them to go out and make a major contribution. However, if the economy is not producing enough jobs to absorb these young people, then we as a society, we have to ask ourselves, is the ecosystem that is around our education system supporting what is needed in the marketplace so that when these young people get out, they can play an active role in the development of this country? I remember when I was growing up, my father and mother used to tell me, you need to go to school so when you get out, you can get a good job. And sure enough, those days you get out of the university, you do get a job. Because there are very few of us who are going to the universities. Right now, we got millions of young people in the universities that are coming out. Our system churns out, across the entire system, 1 million young people from primary school all the way to the universities. But the economy is not expanding fast enough to absorb all these people. So we have to look at all those issues in an ecosystem instead of putting them in a silo of university education. Mm-hmm. When we do that, it becomes easy for us to get our universities to do what they're supposed to do, and that is to address the issues of the workforce in the society. And that's where we should be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dominic Mwenja, who is the CEO of Mater Hospital, also an academician as well. 11% of Kenya or Kenyans will see or will not see the inside of universities. And of course, we need to ask ourselves, then, is it the 11% who will not see or will see?
It's only 11 to 12%.
11 to 12%.
Of our children, historically, who has ever seen the inside of the university.
Okay. And of course, it's talking about the economic citizenship of the people who leave the universities. How are they integrated also in the labor market? That also is another bigger question that we need to probe as well. Up next, we have David Ngaruya, and he's the acting Vice Chancellor of International Leadership University. He's walking over now to the lectern to tell us also what he thinks about the leadership in Kenyan University. And of course, also just to brief you, if you pick up the Daily Nation today on page 5, you'll have this particular story of the University of Nairobi as well, and this is also in tandem with what we're talking about. Mbithi's bid for second term flops. It says that University of Nairobi Vice Chancellor Professor Peter Mbithi's bid for a second term has flopped after the council turned down his request. The University Council, chaired by Professor Julia Ojambo, has since asked the besieged VC to proceed on terminal leave starting July the 6th. However, the council advised him to reapply for the position once it is advertised by the Public Service Commission. The decision was made on Wednesday during a stormy special council meeting, which was called to decide on the fate of the VC. On Tuesday, the council held an ordinary meeting where a request letter from the professor, that is Peter Mbithi, was distributed to members. You can read the rest of the details also on page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Up, we have on the lectern Professor David Ngaruya, the acting Vice Chancellor of International Leadership University. Professor, take it away.
Thanks, Debarl. Many times we talk about university education, but I think it's important for us to actually flesh it out, first of all. And so I want to begin by clarifying that largely when you talk about university education, we're talking about 3 aspects. We're talking about research, which is often pure research or practical research. We're also talking about teaching. And thirdly, we talk about service to the community. And so university education is actually something holistic in the sense that it not only delivers knowledge, creation of knowledge, but through research, but it also winds up in having service delivered to communities. Having said that, and recognizing the importance of university, what is the problem that we have in this country? And I think I've already alluded to this from the beginning. There is a tension between university education for public good and university education for private good. I lean on the two. Often we try to go on one of the two sides, but we need the two. Now, and when we talk about leadership in universities for public good, then we are delivering or ought to deliver an education that asks hard questions regarding us as a nation. Where are we going? Where are we taking the next generation? And how are we equipping them for the good of mankind in future? Now, that puts our personal interests at stake. And hence the issue of private good, where some people argue, no, university education cannot be affordable for everyone. And therefore, if you can afford it, pay for it. Let's not pay for it from our public coffers. But the problem with this is that it creates this issue of massification. And Professor Mwenja, you have alluded to that. And the massification of university education begins to think of numbers. It begins to think of profit. And when we talk about profit, we often forego very important issues related to university education. We leave out issues of character development, for example. And we just think of how much can we get out of this person, or how much can we make out of their education. That's the problem with seeing university education as a private good. And so how do we move forward in this? I think as a nation, we are making very good strides. Because first of all, we're beginning to articulate what our problems are. At the same time, we're beginning to see from government agendas that are based from the needs of the country, derived through research. And for me, the big four are very, very, very important for us. And the problem we're having currently is that there has been a lack of convergence between our national development as a country and what our universities are doing. As a way forward then, what we ought to do as a country, so that we may stop talking about, the lack of leadership we want to see, not only in various sectors, including universities, but also what we are creating for the future, is this. We need to have a convergence of the interests of this nation, the interests of nurturing individuals for the gifts that they have. I think Martin was talking about this. And a convergence of what the world needs. You see, when universities were first founded, the focus was on very narrow fields, but they were very, very important fields because they affected entire societies. For example, university education began to offer law, medicine, and even priesthood. And think about those. Think about healing. Think about character, because that is what the priesthood was all about. And think about order in society, because that is what law is partly about. But in our day, we have moved to many disciplines now, which is good because human society keeps on changing and evolving. And what we need to ask is this: how do we maintain a base where we deliver public good through good character and at the same time through private good develop individuals who think about the good of mankind, not only for today and also for the future. And so if we are really to talk about leadership in university education as I conclude, let's remember the basics, that a university exists to do research, pure research and practical research. Universities exist to provide good teaching, and universities exist to provide service to communities. And those are issues that really have much to do with public good, not just private good.
Thank you. Professor David Ngaruya there, the Acting Vice Chancellor of International Leadership University. And of course, the tension that he's actually bringing to bear between the public good and the private good of the university education also is a ticklish issue that we need to explore this morning. And the massification of university education, we can see there's a lot of mass production, so to speak, of graduates that we're having nowadays. But should we also question the quality and the caliber of the graduates that are coming from the universities as well? This is a matter of quality, and this has been a big debate as well. Recently, you know, also of the ticklish issues about PhDs from one of the universities here in the country where we had 118 PhDs, and that also is a question that is being probed by the Commission for University Education. We want to hear, before we take a short break right now, also from Dr. Collins Odote, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, and also he is a business columnist with Business Daily and an advocate of the High Court, environmental lawyer. David, you've got, Collins, you've got 5 minutes beginning now.
Thanks, Debarl. One of my favorite writers on issues of leadership is John Maxwell. And John Maxwell defines leadership in, I think, some very interesting terms. And he says that leadership is neither about titles, positions, or flowcharts. It's about influencing another. And I think that's the context in which we should have this conversation. To what extent is university leadership influencing? And the question we need to ask is, who do university leaders lead? Who do they influence? And I think there's both an internal and an external audience. Internally, you must influence the staff, you must influence academics, who are very opinionated. I think after politicians are the most opinionated people. But you also must influence the future generation. You're molding young people who will change the world or who will follow the bad manners that exist in the current world. So you have a huge, huge responsibility. If we must be able to address issues of values, if you must be able to address issues of culture, then university education is at the turning point of that process. Because what we show, what we teach our students helps to determine what kind of people they are. But secondly, Debarl, every country, the trajectory it takes depends on the focus, the quality, and the relevance of its education, not on the titles, not on the papers. If all you do is to have mass production of human beings, you will have a huge number of human beings, but after some point, it will catch up with you. I think it's on this show that several of us have argued. You know, when you see buildings collapsing, stop wondering, because the people that you've been training as engineers maybe had no idea how to construct a building. Early this year, I was talking to some young person who had gone through a course on survey and told me that the first time they saw a title deed was when they were working. Yet, survey is about parceling land. And when you parcel land, at the end of it, there's going to be a map, there's going to be a title deed. So if this person has never seen a title deed, what are they being taught about? And that's something to do with leadership. A short while ago, Debarl, I told you about one of my biggest concerns. One of my biggest concerns is I think that the leaders we have at the university currently are, because of a mix of two things, because of existential circumstances and because of the obtaining environment, turned into manual administrators. Administrators that focus on pushing paper, ticking boxes, are not on transformation. Because if you have university education, university leadership that focuses on basic things, if all you worry about at the end of the day is A, whether the place is clean, B, whether people report at 8 o'clock, 3, how much water you use, then you're dealing with the minutiae. That cannot be the duty of an overall university administrator. The university administrator must be asking the relevance. What is the relevance of our courses? What's the quality? What's the quality of our supervision process? What's the quality? What's the quality of our graduates? How effective is our teaching? The professor has just told you there are 3 functions of universities. Unfortunately, I think you focus on function number 2. We over-focus on teaching university, thinking that a university is a primary school. It cannot be. The reason why universities focus on learning and focus on learning and focus on community service is for particular design. And I think it is time that we are certainly asking our university leaders how much community service did you do as a university? Community service cannot just be going to Asumbi, where I come from some village, speaking to some university says, and then the university says when they do performance community service. That is useful. Yes, that is useful service. But that is community service that happens by the university, that universities dedicate dedicated and resources. Number 2, service. Number 2, if we say the university education is not relevant to the market, the question we must be asked is the linkages. What is the linkages with the market? Do we have people from the market? Do we have people from the market coming to have conversations with students? We have people from the market. We have people from the market that is happening. What the work that is happening with the university. Do we have university cutting edge research conversations about innovation? How innovative products are our research to do so? And until university leadership, the university leadership would be a leadership that is focusing on the now and not focusing on transforming our society.
Right, thank you. Of course, we shall be exploring some of the points that he has raised. We're focusing too much on teaching at the expense of greater good of the universities in the country. What are the linkages between the university market and the marketplace? Why are we having this floating plans that are growing every day? And of course, this is something we need to probe. Issues that we need to probe this morning. So we want to take a back break right now. We want to talk about virtual hearings. That is virtual panelists. That is virtual research here, and also we shall hear from. Don't go away. Also, that we should have also with us. Want to show with us.